Elias Rourke stood in the center of the Ketheri throne hall, trying not to stare too long at anything. Every wall glowed with silver veins of energy. The floor hummed under his boots. Giant banners with swirling alien symbols hung from the ceiling like floating sheets of light. Everything felt too large and too grand for a simple human diplomat like him. He kept his hands folded to hide how nervous he was. The Cathari nobles watched him with faint amusement, their tall forms moving with a smooth grace no human could imitate. Their eyes, bright like small suns, never blinked. Elias knew the Cathari respected strength, intelligence, and perfect genetics. Humans, unfortunately, checked none of those boxes in their eyes. He had spent months on this planet and had gotten used to being studied like an interesting but harmless creature. Today felt different, though. Today, their stares held something else, something he couldn't understand yet. The Emperor himself sat at the far end of the hall. Emperor Thalcor was massive even for his species, with armor-like plates on his shoulders that shimmered like crystal. When he spoke, the air vibrated softly. "Human Elias Rourke," the Emperor said, voice deep and calm. "Our council has reached a decision." Elias bowed respectfully. "I am honored to hear it, Your Radiance." Some nobles exchanged looks, trying to hide their smiles. Elias noticed, but he kept quiet. He had learned long ago that smiling nobles usually meant trouble. The Emperor lifted one hand, and a gentle wave of light moved across the room. A smaller figure stepped forward from behind the throne. She was slender, with soft blue skin and long silver markings along her arms. Her eyes, unlike the others, held no amusement, only tired acceptance. "This," the Emperor said, "is Princess Valais Sharen." Elias bowed again, deeper this time. She gave a small, polite nod. Though she looked surprised, he bowed at all. The Emperor continued, "She will be placed under your care, as part of a long-term companionship exchange. You will live with her, assist her, and remain by her side as our shared representative of goodwill." Elias blinked. Surely he misheard. Companionship exchange? That sounded like something important, possibly sacred. Why him? A low-level human diplomat, chosen for the Emperor's own daughter? He waited for clarification. The nobles, however, failed to hide their snickering. The Emperor spoke again, still calm. "We trust humans excel at emotional support. You are simple, uncomplicated, non-threatening. This arrangement is suitable." It was an insult, wrapped politely. Elias felt it, but he didn't react. Diplomatic training kept his expression steady. He only nodded respectfully. Humans were known for adjusting to strange tasks. This was just another strange task. Princess Valais stood perfectly still beside the throne. She seemed almost statuesque, but her eyes flickered with something sharp. Hurt, maybe. Elias couldn't tell, but it made him uneasy. The Emperor lifted his hand again. "Princess Valais, step forward. Step forward. Reeded forward. Step forward." She obeyed, gliding across the glowing floor until she stood a few feet from Elias. She was taller than him by at least a head, graceful and composed, but clearly tense. Elias noticed the rigid way she held her hands clasped behind her back. "This union," the Emperor said, "is symbolic. As you know, Princess Valais is infertile by Cathari standards." A cold silence moved through the hall. Elias's heart tightened. The way the Emperor said it plainly, publicly, felt cruel. He glanced at Valais, expecting some reaction, but she only lowered her gaze. Her jaw tightened, just a little. "Because she cannot continue the royal line," the Emperor continued. "Her presence at court is no longer required. A human companion suits her new status." Elias understood now. This was punishment. Not for him, for her. Giving an infertile princess to a human was a way for the nobles to laugh behind their hands. They were not honoring Elias. They were mocking both of them. He heard soft chuckles from the nobles again. Elias straightened his posture. If this was a joke, he would not allow himself to play the fool. He gave a respectful bow toward Valet, again, deeper than before. "I will do my best to serve you well, princess," he said sincerely. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes. Her expression flickered confusion, maybe disbelief. She blinked once. Slowly, the emperor concluded the ceremony. "You will leave immediately. Your transport awaits." Elias nodded, turned, and followed the escort guards. Princess Valet walked beside him, silent. They stepped out of the throne hall and into a quieter corridor, lit with soft blue lights. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, Elias broke the silence. "If there is anything you need, or anything I should know, to help you feel comfortable, please tell me. I want to be respectful." Valet looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You are polite for a human." "Thank you. I think," he said with a cautious smile. She tilted her head slightly. "You do not know why they chose you, do you?" "I have some guesses," Elias admitted. "They consider my value gone," she said, voice quiet but steady. "And to them, humans are entertainment. The council thinks giving me to a human caretaker is humorous. They believe I will fade from importance, quietly and without challenge." Elias frowned. "That seems unfair." "It is truth," she replied. "Unfairness is irrelevant." He studied her for a moment. She carried herself like someone who had been strong for too long. He recognized that look. Humans wore it too. "I don't accept that," Elias said gently. "Their truth doesn't have to be yours." Her eyes narrowed, not angrily, but thoughtfully. "You speak simply," she said. "But your words are unexpected." They reached the landing platform. A sleek silver transport ship waited, humming softly. The wind was cool and carried the scent of crystalline trees from the gardens below. Before boarding, Valet paused and looked at Elias again. It was the longest she had held eye contact since the throne room. "You do not treat me like a broken thing," she said quietly. "Because you aren't," Elias replied. For the first time, something soft and almost fragile appeared in her expression. Not quite hope, but the distant echo of it. She stepped onto the ship. Elias followed. As the doors sealed behind them and the engines began to rise, Elias felt a strange determination settle inside him. Whatever the council's intentions, whatever mockery had shaped this assignment, one thing was certain. He would not let Princess Valet be defined by their cruelty. And maybe, if he tried hard enough, this strange assignment, meant to be a cosmic joke, could become something entirely different, something meaningful for both of them. The journey to the research outpost took several hours, flying through calm stretches of space where stars glowed like dust scattered across black velvet. Elias sat across from Princess Valet in the transport ship. The cabin was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engines. Valet sat with perfect posture, hands folded neatly, eyes staring out the window as if the stars held answers she had long given up searching for. Elias wanted to speak, but he could sense that she needed space. She looked like someone who had been forced into silence for years, and pushing conversation now felt wrong. Instead, he watched the quiet rise and fall of her breathing, and wondered what kind of life she had lived inside a royal court that saw her as a failure. Finally, she broke the silence. "You are staring." Elias blinked. "Sorry. I didn't mean to be rude." "It is not rude," she said. "It is simply unfamiliar. Most at court do not look at me directly anymore." Elias shifted forward slightly. "Why?" She kept her gaze on the stars. "Because looking at something broken reminds them that even the perfect can shatter." The sadness in her voice wasn't dramatic, it was simple, steady. and far too normal for someone her age. Elias felt a knot tighten in his chest. "You're not broken," he said quietly. She still didn't look at him, but her voice softened. "You speak as if truth is made of words." "Sometimes it is," Elias replied. "Sometimes words change how we see the world." She gave a small, almost invisible nod. "Humans use emotions like tools. It is unusual." Elias smiled a little. "I'd say emotions use us. We're not as in control as we pretend." That earned the smallest sound from her halfway between a soft laugh and a sigh. It was the first sign that she wasn't made of stone after all. Hours later, the ship arrived at the research outpost. It was a quiet station floating near a bright nebula, its metal surface glowing with pale lights. The station was used for scientific study and diplomatic placements, far away from political games of any empire. The moment they stepped onto the station, a calm, welcoming atmosphere surrounded them. Scientists and staff moved through clear halls with relaxed expressions. No one bowed, no one stared. They simply treated Valet and Elias like normal guests. For Valet, this was unusual. Her steps slowed as she observed the people passing by without fear, judgment, or gossip. She was used to whispers following her like shadows. Here, there was only silence, or rather, quiet respect. Elias watched her closely. "Different from the court? It feels free," she whispered, as if afraid the walls might take it away. Their quarters were simple but comfortable, 2 rooms connected by a common area with soft lighting and small plants growing in transparent containers. When the door closed behind them, Valet slowly walked around the room, touching nothing, almost like she didn't trust it was real. "You can choose any part of the room you like," Elias said gently. "If you want changes, decorations, anything, just tell me." She turned to him with a puzzled expression. "Why do you offer choice?" "I am here because choice was taken from me." "Maybe," Elias said, "but that doesn't mean it stays that way." Valet studied him as if trying to understand something complicated. "You speak with confidence for someone who has no power." Elias chuckled softly. "Humans are used to having very little power. We make do." 8. She considered that and looked around again. "I think I would like to sit." He gestured to the couch. She sat down carefully, almost too gracefully, as if every movement had been trained. Elias sat on the opposite side, giving her enough space to feel safe. For a while, they sat quietly. Not awkwardly, just peacefully. Finally, Valet spoke again. "They expect me to disappear here. They expect you to be simple enough to accept this role without question." "I accepted it," Elias said, "because you deserve someone who won't treat you like an object." She blinked slowly. "Why would you care? Your species has nothing to gain." "That's not how humans work," he replied. "We don't need gain to care." Her eyes softened, just a little. "Your kindness is dangerous." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" "Yes," she said. "If I grow used to it, returning to the cruelty of the court becomes harder." "You won't return to that," Elias said firmly. "You're not there anymore." "Exile is not freedom," she whispered. He leaned forward. "Then we'll build freedom here, even if it's small." Her gaze lowered, unfocused. The idea seemed impossible to her. Years of being treated as worthless had carved deep cracks into her confidence. That evening, Elias showed her around the station. They met the lead scientist, Dr. Mira Dalen, a friendly woman with bright eyes and endless curiosity. She greeted Valet warmly and asked thoughtful questions, not about her infertility, not about her royal status, but about her interests and ideas. Valet seemed unsure how to respond at first, as if waiting for the hidden insult. But none came. For the first time in a long while, she was being treated like a person. As they walked back to their quarters, Valet spoke softly. "This place is confusing. People here do not fear me. They do not mock me. They simply exist beside me. That's how life should be, Elias said. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. I do not know how to exist like that. Then we'll learn it together, Elias said with a small smile. She didn't smile back, but she didn't look away either. That was progress. Days passed, and their quiet companionship grew naturally. Elias would spend mornings helping the station staff, and Valet would read through scientific files or observe experiments. In the afternoons, she and Elias would talk sometimes about culture, sometimes about the stars, sometimes about nothing at all. One afternoon, while they sat near the observation window watching the nebula shift in glowing colors, Valet asked, "Do you not resent them?" "Who?" "The council, the nobles. They insulted you. They gave you a task as if you were a toy." Elias shrugged gently. "I don't care what they think. What matters is what I do with the responsibility." "And what will you do?" she asked, voice quiet. He looked at her with steady eyes. "I'll support you. That's my job. And honestly, I want to." She exhaled slowly, as if releasing tension she had held for years. "No one has ever chosen to support me before." "Then, I'll be the first," he said simply. Valet looked out at the nebula again. But this time, her eyes held a faint light. Something fragile, like hope trying to grow. For the first time since arriving, she felt she might not be alone in the universe after all. Weeks passed on the research outpost, and life slowly shaped itself into a quiet rhythm. Elias and Valet found comfort in small routines: morning tea brewed by the station cooks, long walks through silver-lit corridors, and silent evenings watching the nebula glow like a living painting outside the observation window. It was peaceful. And for Valet, peace felt like something strange and unfamiliar. One morning, Dr. Mira Dalen invited them to observe a study involving an ancient Cathari artifact. The artifact had been discovered decades earlier, sealed inside a collapsed moon temple. No scientist had been able to activate it, but they believed it had once served a biological purpose. Valet recognized it instantly from historical records, an old Cathari biotech device used during their golden age. As they approached the laboratory, a soft blue glow filled the room. The artifact floated in a transparent containment field, shaped like a smooth stone with flowing patterns that shifted like liquid metal. Valet stepped closer, her expression tight with an emotion Elias could not name. "I thought these were all destroyed," she whispered. Dr. Mira nodded. "Most were. This is the only one left. We've been trying to understand how it functioned, but it has remained dormant." Valet reached toward the containment field without touching it. "It is a compatibility scanner," she said softly. "It was once used to study genetic harmony between species. Not for reproduction, but for health and environmental adaptation." Elias raised an eyebrow. "So it's harmless?" "Completely harmless," Valet confirmed. "It only scans." Dr. Mira seemed pleased. "Your knowledge is valuable, Princess. Would you like to help us?" Valet hesitated, surprised by the genuine request. Eventually, she nodded. They began the test with her first. Valet stepped into the scanning circle on the floor while the lights surrounding the artifact shifted softly. Nothing happened. The artifact stayed dim and quiet. "It still does not respond," Valet said, stepping back with a calm expression, though Elias noticed the faint drop of her shoulders. "Maybe it's broken," he said gently. Before Valet could answer, Dr. Mira looked at Elias. "Would you mind trying, just for comparison?" "Me?" Elias blinked. "I'm not Cathari." "That's exactly why," Mira said. "It would be useful to see the difference." Valet turned to him. "You may try if you wish. It will not harm you." "Valet, try. Try. Valet, try." Elias nodded and stepped onto the scanning circle. The moment he did, The artifact pulsed with sudden light. Valet gasped, softly. The once dark patterns across the stone lit up, shifting into bright gold and blue. The laboratory filled with a low humming sound. Dr. Mira stared with wide eyes. Incredible! It's reacting! The light grew brighter, swirling around the artifact like a living cloud. Elias froze, unsure whether he should step back, but the energy felt warm and gentle, like standing near sunlight. Valet moved closer, studying the glowing patterns. "This is impossible," she whispered. "It has been dormant for centuries." "Is something wrong?" Elias asked. She shook her head slightly. "No. But this should not be happening. The scanner responds only to biological structures it finds." "Intriguing." "I'm intriguing?" Elias said, half amused, half nervous. "Apparently so," Dr. Mira said, still in awe. The artifact continued to glow, brighter than before. Then suddenly, the light expanded outward in a soft wave. Valet stepped forward at the same moment, instinctively reaching out to steady Elias. The wave of energy passed through both of them like a warm breeze, and the glow faded instantly. Silence filled the room. Elias took a breath. "Well, that was interesting." Valet looked at the artifact, then at him, her expression unreadable. "It scanned you, and it scanned me. At the same moment." "Is that bad?" Elias asked. She didn't answer immediately. She was thinking deeply, carefully. The artifact was used to detect potential biological compatibility between species. It looked for adaptive alignments, genetic or environmental. Elias rubbed his neck. "So, what does that mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "that you have something in your biology the Cathari lost long ago. Something the artifact recognized." Dr. Mira moved quickly to examine the device and the data logs. "This could change everything we know about Cathari evolution." 1. Valet seemed distant, almost shaken. Elias placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her voice was quiet. "Yes. But this changes more than science." Later, when they returned to their quarters, the atmosphere felt strange, quiet, but heavy with unspoken thoughts. Valet walked to the observation window, staring at the nebula, her expression far away. Elias approached slowly. "You're bothered by what happened?" "I am confused," she admitted. "My people have believed for generations that infertility is a personal flaw, a failure of the body, a mark of weakness. But the scanner ignored me until you stepped forward. It responded only when we were both inside its range." Elias leaned on the railing beside her. "Maybe it sensed something the court didn't." She turned to him, eyes searching his face. "You think I am not broken?" "I never thought you were," Elias said softly. "Maybe the artifact agrees." Her gaze dropped to the floor. "I do not know how to accept that. I spent my whole life hearing that I was useless to my species, that I could offer nothing. And you offer more than they see," Elias replied. "The court only cared about control, reputation, and genetics. They never cared about you as a person." Valet breathed in slowly. "Your words are simple, yet they shake things inside me." "That's how truth works," Elias said with a small smile. She looked back at the nebula. "Elias?" When the scanner reacted, I felt something. It was like a connection, a brief one, between us. Like our bodies were recognized as compatible, not in the way my people think, but in a deeper, ancient way. Elias felt warmth rise in his cheeks. Valet nodded. "Yes, a warmth." She stood quietly for a long time, thinking deeply. Then she spoke again, voice soft and almost fragile. "If the scan is true, it means my infertility may not be absolute. It might be that my biology cannot connect with Cathari genetics anymore. But with other species. With humans. Elias finished gently. She looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes. I do not know what this means. For me. For you. For our future. Elias stepped closer, careful not to overwhelm her. It doesn't have to mean anything yet. We're not rushing anywhere. What matters is that you're not alone in this. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, tension melting away. Not alone, she repeated quietly, as if tasting the words. For the first time since leaving her homeworld, Valet let herself feel a small piece of hope. Fragile, bright, and terrifying. And for the first time, Elias sensed that their lives were shifting into something larger than both of them, something neither the Cathari nor the humans had expected. The universe had just changed shape around them. Months passed quietly after the day the artifact reacted. The glow of the nebula outside their window became a familiar comfort, and the days on the station followed a calm rhythm until everything changed. Valet woke one morning feeling strange. Not sick, not weak, but different. Her senses were sharper, her emotions clearer. And her body carried an unfamiliar warmth that was neither painful nor frightening. She tried to ignore it at first, assuming it was stress, but the feeling didn't fade. Dr. Mira noticed it when Valet visited the lab. You seem a little pale today, the scientist said kindly. Are you all right? Ingrid. 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 Are you all right? I am not certain, Valet answered honestly. Dr. Mira suggested a simple medical scan. Valet agreed only because she trusted her. Elias stayed beside her during the scan, giving her a calm, steady presence she had come to rely on. When the results appeared on the screen, Dr. Mira froze. Elias glanced at her. Is something wrong? The scientist swallowed. Not wrong, but unexpected. She turned the screen so Valet could see it. Valet stared. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. Elias looked back and forth between them, confused. Can someone please explain? Dr. Mira spoke slowly, carefully. Silence fell so heavy, it felt like the room stopped breathing. Valet's eyes widened, her voice barely a whisper. That is not possible. But the scan didn't lie. A faint, steady pulse appeared on the screen. Tiny, but strong. Elias felt his heart thrum loudly. How? But she couldn't. Dr. Mira nodded. This is real. And healthy. The artifact must have restarted ancient biological pathways that were dormant. Elias's biology triggered something your species lost long ago. Valet pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. I was told I could never create life. All my life. They said, I was a defect. Elias stepped closer and gently rested a hand on her arm. You're not a defect. You never were. Valet's eyes filled not with sadness, but with something powerful and bright. Hope. Fragile, but burning. The news spread across the station quietly at first. But secrets never stayed buried, especially ones this strange. Within 2 weeks, the Cathari Empire received the report, and everything changed. The Cathari sent word demanding that Valet return home immediately. Their message was formal, but Elias could read the shock between every line. The empire that had mocked her now wanted her back because she suddenly mattered again. Valet stood in the common room holding the message, her hands shaking. They want me because of this child, she said quietly. Not because they care. Elias nodded. I know. Then why return? She whispered. Because if we don't, Elias said softly, they may come here, and they won't be gentle. She closed her eyes. The truth hurt, but she knew he was right. The station prepared a transport for them. Staff members came to say goodbye. Dr. Mira hugged Valet carefully. You're not going back alone. she said. You have someone beside you now. Um. Um. Valet nodded, though fear flickered in her eyes. As the ship flew toward the Cathari homeworld, Elias stayed near her the whole time. Sometimes Valet rested her hand over her midsection. Still shocked by the life growing inside her, Elias never stared, never treated her strangely, just offered quiet support. You are too calm, she said to him once during the flight. He smiled. Inside, I'm terrified. But being calm helps you, so I try. Her eyes softened. Thank you. The moment they reached the capital, their peaceful months ended. The landing platform was crowded with guards, nobles, and scientific officials. The air buzzed with a mixture of excitement, disbelief, jealousy, and fear. As Valet stepped off the ship, every eye focused on her stomach, even though nothing showed yet. She felt exposed, judged, and surrounded. Elias stood at her side protectively. The Emperor himself arrived, striding forward with heavy steps. His face carried shock he tried to hide. Valet, he said, his voice stiff. We have heard unusual news. Valet bowed slightly. It is true. And the father? The Emperor asked, though he already knew. Elias stepped forward with calm respect. I stand with her. On. A murmur spread through the crowd's surprise, confusion, even anger. The Emperor's gaze sharpened. You were given to this human as a symbolic gesture. A joke. An exile. And now you return with something that could restore our future? His words cut. But Valet did not lower her head. What you called a joke became something meaningful. This child exists because of change, because of potential. The Emperor hesitated. He clearly didn't know how to handle this. The nobles whispered behind their hands. Some looked furious, others hopeful. One noble stepped forward angrily. This is an insult to our purity. A mixed child cannot be part of the royal line. Another argued. But this is the first natural conception in centuries. We cannot ignore it. Arguments broke out instantly, voices rising like a storm. Valet flinched at the noise. Elias stepped closer to her, blocking some of the attention with his presence. The Emperor raised his hand, silencing the crowd. We will discuss this matter privately. They were escorted inside the palace. The halls were exactly as Valet remembered. Cold, polished, and filled with silent judgment. In a private chamber, the Emperor spoke again. This child could change the fate of our species. Some believe it is a miracle. Others fear it. Valet stood firm. Fear does not change truth. Elias added gently. We didn't plan this, but it happened, and will protect the child. The Emperor studied them both. This situation is complicated, but the council will decide. Valet's hands curled. The same council that mocked me? That threw me away? You expect them to decide the worth of my child? The Emperor faltered. For once, he had no answer. Later, when they were escorted to temporary quarters, Valet sank onto a seat, shaking. Elias stayed beside her, offering silent comfort. They do not see me as a person, she whispered. Now they only see me as a vessel. You're more than that, Elias said. Much more. She looked at him, eyes glowing with emotion. When you speak, it feels true. Even when the whole empire says otherwise. That's because it is true, he replied. She took a deep breath. Tomorrow, they will debate our fate. Elias nodded. Then, tomorrow, we stand together. Outside their window, the capital lights glowed like a restless ocean, an empire struggling between pride and survival. Inside the quiet room, Valet placed a hand on her stomach again. And this time, her expression wasn't fearful. It was determined. She would not let the empire decide her worth anymore. The council chamber was vast and cold, shaped like a giant circle carved from shimmering stone. Thousands of tiny lights floated above the seats, glowing with the colors of each council member's rank. Valet had stood in this room many times before, always feeling small beneath their judging eyes. But today felt different. Today, she was not alone. Elias walked beside her with quiet confidence, and that gave her strength she had never felt in this place. The chamber filled with nobles, scientists, generals, and elders. Some stared at Valet with awe, others with fear, and some with the same cruel amusement from months ago, but now mixed with confusion. The emperor sat at the center, expression stern but uncertain. When the lights dimmed, he stood. "We gather to decide the future of our empire. Princess Valet Sharon has returned carrying a child conceived naturally for the first time in centuries." A wave of whispers filled the room. Valet stood tall, her hands steady. The emperor raised his hand. "We must discuss what this child represents. Hope or danger?" A noble rose immediately, a tall man with cold eyes. "This changes nothing," he said sharply. "An offspring with human blood cannot be permitted to impact our future." Another noble stood in protest. "You say cannot, because you fear your own pride will break. Our species is dying. This child could save us." The room erupted into argument. Accusations, insults, panic. Valet watched silently as they debated her life and her unborn child as if they were objects. The sound grew louder and louder until Elias stepped forward. "Enough!" The room went silent. A human speaking in the council chamber was almost unthinkable. Elias didn't shout, he didn't need to. His voice carried something steady, something honest. "You talk about purity, about pride," he said calmly. "But pride didn't stop your decline. Pride is the reason Valet was cast aside. Pride is what made her believe she was worthless." Valet's breath caught. Elias's words cut through the chamber like a blade. He continued. "You gave her to me as a joke. You expected nothing from her. You expected nothing from me. And now you stand here confused because something happened that doesn't fit your old ideas." One of the nobles sneered. "Human, you speak as if you understand our history." "I don't understand all of it," Elias replied. "But I do understand this. Life appeared where you believed it was impossible. And instead of celebrating it, you argue over whether it fits your rules." Another elder stood. Her voice trembled with age but also wisdom. "Perhaps the rules are the problem." The room quieted again. Finally, the emperor turned to Valet. "Princess, you have been silent. Speak." Valet stepped forward. Her long markings glowed faintly under the room's lights. She looked at the council, not with fear, but with a calm strength that surprised even her. "All my life," she said softly, "I was told my worth was measured through a single ability. When I could not meet that expectation, you threw me away like forgotten glass." Her voice remained steady, but her eyes were bright. "You did not ask who I was. You did not ask what I could do. You only saw what I could not do." Some nobles shifted uncomfortably. "But while you saw a defect," Valet continued, "someone else saw a person." She glanced at Elias. "And treating someone as a person changes everything." She placed a hand over her stomach. "This child exists not because of your rules, your pride, or your expectations. It exists because life adapts. Species evolve. Connections form where you least expect them." The room remained silent. Valet lifted her chin. "You can call my child a threat, or you can call it a beginning." A soft murmur spread around the chamber, some uncertain, some impressed. Then an elder scientist stood. "Our DNA shows clear stagnation. Our bodies can no longer adapt as they once did. This child represents the revival of natural evolution itself. We must protect it." 2. Another council member rose. We cannot let old traditions blind us to the future. But not everyone agreed. A general spoke loudly. If we accept a child born of a human, we accept the idea that our species was incomplete. Elias responded calmly. Or you accept that your species, like all species, must grow. The emperor listened to every word, his face unreadable. Finally, he stood again. The chamber obeyed instantly. He looked at Valet for a long moment, longer than any father should need to look at his daughter. We wronged you, he said quietly. We allowed pride to guide our judgment. And in doing so, we nearly destroyed our future. Gasps moved through the room. The emperor had never spoken like this before. He continued, This child is a bridge between species. A sign that the universe still favors life. Whether we are prepared or not, evolution has chosen a path forward. His voice grew stronger. I will not stand in its way. Valet felt her chest tighten with emotion. Elias exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The emperor faced the council. The child will be protected. Valet will reclaim her place as princess, not for her ability to give life, but for her courage to stand against our mistakes. A mixture of applause and stunned silence spread through the chamber. Some nobles were unhappy, but most accepted the decision. Hope, after all, was more powerful than pride. After the council dismissed, Valet and Elias walked through the quiet palace gardens. The air smelled of night blossoms. Moonlight shone on the crystal trees. They accepted us, Elias said softly. Valet shook her head. They accepted the future. That is enough. You were incredible, Elias added. I've never seen you speak like that. She turned to him with calm eyes. I learned something important. What's that? That strength is not given by a throne or a council. It is given by those who stand beside you without asking for anything in return. Elias smiled warmly. I'm glad I was there. Valet placed a gentle hand over her stomach. This child will grow in a world that almost rejected it. But now, maybe the world will change. Elias looked at the stars above the palace. And if it doesn't, we will. Valet stepped closer. Her voice soft, but filled with certainty. Elias, thank you for seeing me. He answered just as softly. Always. For the first time in many years, Valet felt the palace was not a prison. It was simply a place one she could choose how to shape. And for the first time in Cathari history, hope did not come from tradition or bloodline. It came from a human who refused to look away, and a princess who chose her own worth. A new future began that night, unexpected, fragile, and bright.